Okay, so sa video lecture na ito, pag-uusapan natin ang three methods of the bank reconciliations. And the three methods are adjusted balance method, book to bank method, and bank to book method. So we have three methods of a bank reconciliations. We have our adjusted balance method, book to bank methods, and the bank to book method. Adjusted balance method is where the book balance and the bank balance are reconciled to correct cash balance. So itong cash balance na ito na makukuha natin sa method na adjusted balance method, yan ang ipapakita natin sa ating cash balance in our balance sheet. Alright, so adjusted balance method is the book balance and the bank balance are reconciled to cash balance. So yung cash balance na makukuha natin sa method na ito, yan ang ipapakita natin sa balance sheet. Sa book to bank balance method naman, the book balance is reconciled with the bank balance. Therefore, the book balance is adjusted to equal the bank balance. So, itong method na ito, ang hinahanap natin is the bank balance. Alright, so sa method na ito, the book balance is reconciled with the bank balance. Therefore, the book balance is adjusted to equal the bank balance. So sa method na ito, usually ang hinahanap ng problem or the requirements on this method is the bank balance. Kung ang hinahanap or the requirements on your problem is the bank balance, we can use this method, the book to bank balance. Sa bank to book balance naman is the bank balance is reconciled with the book balance. It's the other way. The bank balance is reconciled with the book balance. Therefore, the bank balance is adjusted to equal the book balance. So on this method, the bank balance is reconciled with the book balance. Therefore, the bank balance is adjusted to book balance. So kapag ang requirements sa problem mo is the book balance, ito ang gagamitin mong methods, the bank to book balance. Alright, so ito ang tatlong methods ng bank reconciliation. Ano nga ba itong bank reconciliation? A bank reconciliation is a statement which brings into agreement the cash balance per book and the cash balance per bank. And there are three methods na pwede natin gamitin on this bank reconciliations. The adjusted balance method, the book to bank method, and the bank to book method. So, let's have summary kung ano mga pinag-usapan natin on the overview of the bank reconciliations. At ito yan. Alright, so let's have an overview of the company's record and the bank's record. On our bank reconciliation, ito po ang ating cash balance per book on the company's record. Nakukuha natin yan sa ledger. Dito naman sa cash balance per book, nakukuha natin yan sa bank statement. So, on the bank's record, yan po ang ating cash balance per bank. Sa company's record, minimaintain natin ang account na cash in bank or simply yung name ng bangko. Let's say, for example, Metrobank or kung ano man ang pangalan ng bangko. We simply maintain the cash in bank. So, dito, gagamit tayo ng cash in bank. On the bank's records, ang minimaintain ng bangko is the account depositor or the name of the company. Let's say for example, Boracay Company sa kanyang depositor. Gagamit tayo ng depositor para mas madali nating matatandaan. So on the bank's record, they maintain the depositor's account or the name of the company. On the cash in bank, the company's record, the normal side of the cash in bank on the company's record is the debit side, while the bank's record is on the credit side. So on the company's record, nag-i-increase ang ating balance of our cash in bank kapag nagkaroon tayo ng cash receipts. Ang ibig sabihin, mga collections natin from the customers. Kapag may pumasok na pera, nag-i-increase ang ating cash in bank. Then, on the credit side naman is kapag nag-disburse ng pera ang company, nagdi-decrease ngayon ang cash in bank. Kapag nag-issue ng cheque, ang company, nagdi-decrease ang kanyang cash in bank. On the other hand, sa depositor's account on the bank's record, the normal balance on the depositor's account is on the credit side, on the bank's record. On the debit side, ito yung mga payments ng company, yung mga cheque na binayaran ng bangko at binawas niya sa depositor's account. So, on the debit side, we have our payments, yung mga cheque na in-acknowledge ng bangko, plus mga debit memos. Mga debit memos like bank service charge, yung mga bank service charge na binawas na ng bangko sa account ng depositor. On the credit side naman are the deposit plus the credit memos. Yung mga deposits na, yung mga cash receipts na diniposito ng company to the bank's account or to the depositor's account, nag-i-increase ang account ng depositor. And also, the credit memo, nag-i-increase din ang account ng depositor. So, ito yung mga kung paano nag-i-increase or decrease ang cash in bank on the company's record and the depositor's account on the bank's record. Ano naman ngayon ang mga reconciling item natin? Ang mga reconciling item natin on the company's record are the debit memos and the credit memos. So, ito ang mga credit memos and the debit memos on the bank's record na in-increase or decrease na ng bangko on the account of the depositor. Nire-reconcile natin itong credit memos and debit memos to our cash balance per. So, ano itong mga credit memos? Ang mga credit memos natin, for example, collections of the notes receivable. Sa record ng bangko, in-increase na niya ang account ng depositor from the collections of the notes receivable. So, nag-increase ang account ng depositor. Another examples of a credit memo is proceeds of loans. Kapag nag-loan ang company, ina-add na ng bangko sa account ng depositor. Or interest earned. May mga interest din na na-earn si depositor sa kanyang account. Let's say, a time deposit. Sa time deposit, nag-earn ng interest ang money ng depositor. Or the matured time deposit. So, matured time deposits will be added to the depositor's account. So, therefore, nag-i-increase ang cash ng depositor on the credit memos. On the debit memo naman, nagdi-decrease ang account ng depositor. Ano ba itong mga debit memos? Ang mga debit memos are bank service charge. Babawas natin yan sa depositor's account. NSF check or DAIF, drawn against insufficient fund. So, itong NSF check, nagdi-decrease ang cash cash ng depositor sa kanyang account. Defective checks, kapag defective like walang signature or magkaiba ang amount ng words versus sa numbers ng amount. And payment of loan, kung meron siyang payment for the loans, binabawas din yan ng bangko sa account ng depositor. Dito naman sa cash balance per bank, ang mga reconciling item natin ay ang deposit in transit at ang outstanding checks dito sa cash balance per bank. So, sa bank's record naman, on the cash balance per bank, ang ating mga reconciling item ay deposit in transit at outstanding check. Ang deposit in transit, kapag nagkaroon ng collections from the customer, our entry will be debit to cash in bank and credit to accounts receivable. Nire-record na kaagad ng company ang kinolekta niyang pera from the customer. Then the company will encash the check to the bank. So kapag ang deposit ng company ay hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko, wala pa sa bank balance, ang check na yan or deposit na yan ay magiging deposit in transit. At ang deposit in transit, dahil na-record na ng company sa kanyang cash balance per book, i-add natin itong deposit in transit. So, magiging reconciling item ito sa bank's record. Dito naman sa outstanding check, the company issue a check to the payee. Like say, for example, one of our accounts payable. Nagbayad ang company, nag-issue siya ng cheque at dineliver niya sa payee. Pero si payee, hindi pa siya nakakarating sa bangko to encash the check. So kapag hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko sa kanyang cash balance per bank, ang cheque na ito ay magiging outstanding check. And on the record of the company, the entry on the issuance of the check is debit to accounts payable and credit to cash in bank. So, yan po ang magiging entry ng company on the company's record on the transaction kapag nag-issue siya ng cheque. We debit our accounts payable. Aalisin na natin yan sa accounts payable natin dahil nag-issue na tayo ng cheque, pambayad sa accounts na yon. Then, we credit our cash in bank. Pero hindi pa nakakarating ang payee sa bangko, ang cheque na yon ay magiging outstanding check. Ang outstanding check is gonna be the reconciling items on the cash balance per bank. So, ito po ang ating overview of our company's records and the bank record. On the company's record, yung cash balance per book, nakikita natin sa ledger, sa books ng company. Then, the normal side of our cash in bank is debit side. And nag-i-increase ang ating cash in bank kapag meron tayong cash receipts or mga kinokolekta nating mga pera from customers or other companies. Nagdi-decrease naman itong ating cash in bank kapag nagkaroon tayo ng cash disbursement. Nagdi-decrease ang ating cash in bank kapag nag-issue tayo ng cheque. Ang reconciling items naman dito sa ating cash balance per book is the credit memos at debit memos. Kasi yung credit memos ay na-add na sa cash balance per bank pero hindi pa ito na-add sa ating cash in bank. So, i-add natin para makukuha natin kung magkano ang correct balance ng company. And then, sa debit memo, i-decrease natin ang ating cash in bank for the debit memos. Dito naman sa bank record, ito ang ating cash balance per bank. Sa depositors account, nag-i-increase ang ating cash kapag nagkaroon tayo ng deposits from the company. The company plus the credit memos. Mga credit memos, mga collections ng notes receivable, proceeds of the loan, nag-i-increase ang account ng depositor. Nagdi-decrease naman siya kapag meron tayong mga payments, may mga yung mga cheque na in-issue ng company, binabayaran ng bangko, binabawas natin yan sa account ng depositor. So, dito sa bank records, ang mga payments and debit memo ay nag-decrease na ang amount from the depositor's account. Ang reconciling item natin on the bank reconciliations ay ang deposit in transit at ang outstanding check sa cash balance per bank. Sa deposit in transit on the company's records, ni-record na niya ito sa kanyang cash balance na add na siya, pero sa cash balance per bank, wala pa ito. Kaya ito ay reconciling item. Pa ito na-acknowledge ng bangko. So, kung hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko, wala ito sa cash balance per bank. Sa outstanding checks naman, yung payee hindi pa nakakarating sa bangko. Therefore, sa record ng bangko, hindi pa niya nababawas itong outstanding check. Pero sa record ng company, nabawas na siya. So, that's why it's a reconciling items on the bank record. So, ito po ang ating overview on our company's record versus our bank's record. At pag-usapan natin ang 3 methods of the bank reconciliation. At ito yan, adjusted balance method. So, isa ito sa mga 3 methods ng bank reconciliations. The adjusted balance method, the bank to book method, the book to bank method. At mag-uumpisa tayo sa adjusted balance method. Sa adjusted balance method, the book balance and the bank balance are reconciled to correct cash balance na ipapakita natin sa balance sheet. So, dito sa adjusted balance method, on the cash balance per book, ang reconciling item natin ay credit memos and the debit memos. Ang credit memo ay ina-add natin sa cash balance per book. Ano ba yung credit memo? Ang credit memo ay inad na sa bank pero hindi pa ito na-add sa book ng company. On the cash balance per bank, nandun na ang amount na yon na credit memo. Pero sa cash balance per book, wala pa yon. Kaya i-add natin yung amount ng credit memo sa cash balance per book. Another reconciling item is the debit memo. The debit memo will be deductions to the cash balance per book. Bakit? Dahil sa bank, binawas niya sa account ng depositor, therefore, ibabawas din natin ito sa book para magtutugma silang dalawa. The debit memo is deductions to the cash balance per book. On the other hand, our cash balance per bank naman, ang reconciling item natin ay the deposit in transit and the outstanding check. Ano ba yung deposit in transit? Ito yung mga deposits na hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko. Pero sa book, na-add na siya. Nung nakolekta ng company ang collections na yon, nag-entry ang company na debit to cash in bank and credit to accounts receivable. So, na-add na ito sa cash balance per book. Pero dito sa bank, hindi pa siya na-add. So, para magtutugma silang dalawa, i-add natin ang deposit in transit. Alright, another item dito sa cash balance per bank is the outstanding check. Ang ginawa ng company sa kanyang book, binawas na niya itong outstanding check. Ano ba itong outstanding check? Ito yung mga cheque na hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko. Yung mga payee na hawak-hawak nila ang cheque, hindi pa nakakarating sa bangko, nabawas na sa book, pero hindi pa nababawas sa bangko, ibabawas natin para magtutugma silang dalawa. We minus the outstanding check. Another reconciling item is the error. So, another reconciling item is mga errors na committed either the cash balance per book or the cash balance per bank. So, kung sino ang nakakommit ng errors, doon mo siya i-reconcile o doon mo siya i-correct yung amount na yon. So, on the errors, it's either an addition to the cash balance per bank or a minus on cash balance per book. So, i-analyze natin yan, error na yan, on a case-to-case basis. So it's either gonna be addition or subtractions to the cash balance per book. Ganito din naman sa cash balance per bank. So yung errors na nakumit ng bangko, it's either additions to the cash balance per bank or a minus to the cash balance per bank. Ito ang mga reconciling items, and then we will end up with the adjusted cash balance na ipapakita natin sa balance sheet. So we will end up with the adjusted cash balance, at ang adjusted cash balance ng per book is equal to the adjusted cash balance per bank. So itong dalawang ito ay kailangang equal. Pareha sila ng amount. So we will end up with the same amount of the adjusted cash balance per book and the adjusted cash balance per bank. Ito ang amount na ipapakita natin sa ating balance sheet. Para ma-appreciate natin ang adjusted balance method, I will write down amounts. So ito ang mga given amount on the cash balance per book or book balance is 605,000. We will add the credit memo. The credit memo is 255,000. Then, another reconciling item is the debit memo. The debit memo, binawas na yan sa cash balance per bank. Kaya, on the cash balance per book, i-minus din natin yan para magtutugma silang dalawa. So, we have a debit memo of 120,000. And on the errors, wala tayong error na informations or amount. So, we have no error. Then, we will end up with adjusted cash balance of 740,000. On the cash balance per bank naman, we have a bank balance of 500,000. Then, on the cash balance per bank, i-add natin ang deposit in transit. Ang deposit in transit, ito yung mga deposit ng company sa bangko na hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko. Therefore, on the cash balance per bank, wala pa itong deposit in transit. Kaya i-add natin. And the deposit in transit is 475,000. Then we will minus the outstanding checks. The outstanding checks is 235,000. Ano ba itong outstanding check? Ang outstanding check, yung payee hindi pa nakakarating sa bangko para in cash niya ang check na yon. Nabawas na sa cash balance per book, kaya ima-minus natin yan sa per bank para magtutugma silang dalawa. And the outstanding checks is 235,000. Then we don't have an error on this example. So we will end up on the cash balance per bank equal to the adjusted cash balance of 740,000. So pareha silang dalawa. The adjusted cash balance per book and the adjusted cash balance per bank. Pareha sila or equal silang dalawa. On the balance per book, ina-add natin ang credit memo dahil sa cash balance per bank, na-add na po yan. Nandito na sa cash balance per bank yung amount na 255,000. Pero wala pa sa cash balance per book, kaya natin siya ina-add para magtutugma silang dalawa. Yung debit memo naman, binabawas natin ito sa per book dahil nabawas na ito sa per bank. Nabawas na yan sa 500,000. We don't have an error. We will end up with 740,000, which is the same as the adjusted cash balance per bank. So, kailangan itong dalawang ito ay equal silang dalawa. And the amount of the cash balance is presented in our balance sheet. Alright, so this is our adjusted balance method. Alamin naman natin ang ating bank to book balance. So another method of the bank reconciliations, one of the three methods is the book to bank method. Ang book to bank method is the book balance is adjusted to the bank balance. So yung book balance na yan is adjusted to equal the bank balance. So yung amount ng book balance ay i-reconcile natin para maging bank balance. So ginagamit itong method na ito kapag ang requirement ng problem mo is to find the bank balance. So ito ang gagamitin mong method. So from the book balance, ang mga reconciling items ay i-adjust natin sa book balance para maging bank balance. We will start with the credit memo. The credit memo is addition to the book balance. The credit memo is addition to the book balance para makita natin kung magkano ang bank balance. Bakit natin i-add ang credit memo sa book balance? Dahil sa bank balance, na-add na ang amount ng credit memo pero wala pa sa balance ng book. So, i-add natin siya para makita natin ang bank balance. Then, another one is the outstanding check is an addition to your book balance to come up with the bank balance. Addition ang ating outstanding check. Bakit addition? Dahil sa bank balance, wala pa yung outstanding check. Para makita mo ang bank balance, i-add back natin sa book balance. Kasi sa book balance, na minus na ang outstanding check. Kaya i-add back natin yan para makita natin ang bank balance. Then, we will have our total. Another reconciling item is the deposit in transit. The deposit in transit hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko. Dahil hindi pa na-acknowledge ng bangko, wala pa yun sa bangko, yung amount ng deposit in transit. But on the book balance, nandito na sa amount na yan. Na-add na ang deposit in transit sa book balance. Para makita natin ang bank balance, ima-minus natin ang amount ng deposit in transit. And then the debit memo. The debit memo is another subtractions or minus. Ima-minus natin ang debit memo. Alright, so i-minus natin ang ating debit memo sa book balance dahil ang debit memo ay na-minus na sa bank balance. Pero hindi pa ito na-minus sa book balance. Para makita natin ang bank balance, i-minus natin ang debit memo. Para ma-appreciate mo itong book to bank methods, magbibigay ako ng mga amount to get our bank balance. So, ito ang mga information sa mga amounts na kailangan natin to find the bank balance. So, we have a book balance of 807,000, deposit in transit of 186,000, outstanding check of 35,000, credit memo of 28,000, and a debit memo of 14,000. So, madali lang natin itong gagawin dahil kumpleto ang ating mga informations or mga amounts natin. The book balance is 807,000. So we have a book balance of 807,000. The credit memo is 28,000, which is addition to the book balance. Outstanding checks will be 35,000. We will have a total of 870,000. Then, ima-minus natin ang deposit in transit of 186,000. Then, ma-minus din natin ang ating debit memo of 14,000. We will come out with a bank balance of 670,000. So, ito po ang ating book-to-bank balance. Ginagamit itong method na ito kapag ang hinahanap mo or requirement sa practice questions or problem mo is the bank balance. At madali itong i-compute kapag kumpleto ang mga amounts. Pero kapag hindi ito kumpleto, let's say may bank balance ka pero wala kang deposit in transit, you will work it back. I-work back mo para makita mo ang iyong deposit in transit. Or wala kang outstanding check na amount, i-work back mo para makita mo ang outstanding check. So, ito po ang ating book-to-bank balance. Pag-usapan naman natin ang bank-to-book balance. At ito yan. Alright, the last methods on the three methods of bank reconciliations, we have our bank-to-book method. Ang bank-to-book method, the bank balance is reconciled with the book balance. Therefore, the bank balance is adjusted to equal the book balance. So, i-adjust natin lahat para maging book balance. Alright? The first item is the deposit in transit. We will add the deposit in transit to the bank balance para makita natin ang book balance. Bakit natin ina-add ang deposit in transit? Sa deposit in transit, na-add na yan sa book balance pero hindi pa ito na-add sa bank balance. So, i-add natin para makita natin ang book balance kasi yan ang hinahanap natin na amount. Then, we will add the debit memo. Another item is we will add the debit memo. Bakit natin ina-add ang debit memo sa bank balance para makita natin ang book balance? Ina-add natin ang debit memo dahil sa book balance, wala yung amount na yan sa book balance. Para makita natin ang book balance, i-add back natin yan sa bank balance sa balance ng bangko. Dahil ang debit memo ay minus sa bank balance. Ngayon, dahil hindi pa ito nababawas sa book balance at yun ang hinahanap natin itong book balance, i-add back natin ang debit memo to get our book balance. Then we will have our total. Another reconciling item is the credit memo. Ang credit memo ay mina-minus natin sa ating bank balance to get our book balance. So, bakit natin mina-minus ang ating credit memo? So, ang credit memo, ito ay addition to the bank balance. Pero sa book, hindi pa siya na-add. Para makita natin ang book balance, i-minus natin yung credit natin sa bangko to get our book balance. Then, i-minus din natin ang ating outstanding checks. Alright, bakit minus ang outstanding checks? Kasi sa book balance, na-minus na yung outstanding checks. So, sa bank balance, ibabawas natin yan para makita natin kung magkano ang book balance. Para ma-appreciate natin ang formula ng bank-to-book method, magbibigay ako ng mga informations or mga amounts para ma-appreciate natin itong formula ng bank-to-book method. So, on this practice questions, we have a bank balance of 500,000. We have our credit memo of 255,000, a debit memo of 120,000, deposit in transit of 475,000, at outstanding check of 235,000. Bank balance of 500,000. We add our deposit in transit of 475,000. We add our debit memo of 120,000. So we come up with a total of 1,095,000. Then ima-minus natin ang ating credit memo. The credit memo is 255,000. And the outstanding checks is 235,000. We come up with the book balance of 605,000. So, on this bank-to-book balance, gagamitin mo ito kapag requirements sa problem mo is the book balance. Yan ang hinahanap natin. Kapag yan ang hinahanap natin, pwede mong gamitin ang bank to book balance. So, mag-umpisa ka sa bank balance, then we will add our deposit in transit of 475,000. Ina-add natin ang deposit in transit na 475 kasi na-add na yan sa book balance. Na-record na yan sa book balance na 605. Dahil na-add na sa book balance, i-add natin sa bank balance para makita natin ang book balance na 605,000. Ina-add din natin ang debit memo na 120,000 dahil ang debit memo ay minus sa bank balance, pero sa book balance, hindi pa natin yan na-minus ang debit memo. So, therefore, para makita mo ang book balance, ang debit memo, i-add back natin yan sa bank balance. And the credit memo is to the bank balance, pero dahil ang hinahanap natin is the book balance, ima-minus natin ang ating credit memo to get our book balance. So, we minus the credit memo from our bank balance na 500,000. Then we minus our outstanding check of 235,000. Bakit natin mina-minus? Kasi on the book balance, na-minus na ang outstanding checks. Pero sa bank balance, nandoon pa rin itong cheque na 235,000. So, para makita natin ang book balance na 605, ma-minus natin ang 235,000. So, yan po ang ating bank to book balance method. So, ganito po ang ating tatlong methods ng ating bank reconciliation. We have the adjusted cash balance method, the book to bank method, and the bank to book method. Then I'll see you on my next video.